The public in general believes that animal testing stopped like 10 or 15 years ago. There's a really good reason for that. The industries, don't publicize that they test on animals. Whenever there are actual polls done, people generally do not support animal testing. So pharmaceutical drugs, the development of which it's mandatory by federal law that they be tested on animals. Non-medical things like shampoos, cosmetics, etc., is not mandatory at all. So it's not a government regulation that has to be done. The corporations are choosing to do that. These companies will, if you ask them, they will always say, well, we're doing that for your safety. We're going to spray hairspray into Beagles' eyes or rabbits' eyes because we'll know how dangerous these things are, and then it's safer for you. But the actual truth is they're doing it to protect themselves. They do testing on animals because their insurance companies basically make it mandatory so that if they are ever sued by a consumer, they can basically say, well, these were tested on animals and they were shown to be safe on animals. So it's kind of part of a bigger propaganda issue that these large corporations are trying to make it seem as if they're doing this to help you. One question that's always asked is, why are they testing on animals? And the biggest answer is money. So the National Institute of Health, which is a government, part of the government, please flip to the next one, which is part of the government, basically gives $14.5 billion with a B to mostly universities and public institutions all over the country. So that is a lot of money. We're talking about at least 15 different universities are getting about $100 million a year from the federal government to test on beagles and rats and cats, etc. So we're talking about like massive amounts of money. So on top of that, you also have companies who are providing food to all these labs, so they're profiting. The companies who build the cages, security, breeders, for instance, which we didn't know until we really started getting into this, that there are actual breeders who are breeding beagles, for instance, to directly go to labs. So they are profiting directly to basically breed these guys to go to labs to then be tortured and at the end of the experiment being killed. So there's tons of money. So whenever the other side, whether it's the medical doctors or the large corporations like Procter & Gamble who test on animals, tell you that this is for your benefit or that this is to like save everybody's lives, you always have to think about how much money is involved in these industries. So it's a lot. So it's called, LD50 stands for lethal dose 50. And what that is they will continue to give a toxin to the animal until half of them basically die. So in those types of experiments, half of these animals, dogs, rabbits, etc., are being killed within that experiment. And the idea that they claim is that when half of them die, that's the perfect level of toxicity that could potentially harm a human. And so that's how much they'll allow in a particular product or medication. So again, in that case, they're clearly killing the animal. So even at the end of the experiment, because of two things, one is it's so cheap for them to just go to a breeder and get more dogs, cats, and other animals, they will kill them. As well, they just don't want the public to know that they're doing this, and particularly when it comes to rabbits, cats, and dogs, because these are the animals we love, these are the animals that we grew up with. And then they know that the public would be outraged if they knew that these beautiful dogs were basically being tested on something like shampoo or perfume or what you clean your toilet bowl with. They know that the public won't like that. Do these tests on animals actually work? Are they saving lives as the industry tries to tell you? Are they making humans' lives better, etc.? And then we have the flip side, which we'll talk about next, which is more about the ethical issue. Since animals are sentient beings, meaning that they feel pain, they suffer, they have an emotional life, as anybody here who's ever lived with a dog or a cat or rabbit knows, that your animals feel fear, they feel pain, you take them to the vet and they have to get a shot, they react to that. So the question ethically is it okay to take an animal who suffers, who's going to be tortured and live in like terrible conditions, even if scientifically it does work, is that something that we should be supporting because of the effect it has basically on a fellow sentient being? So in terms of the scientific issue, for the way the process works is that a drug has to basically be tested by law, by federal law, on animals. Once it goes through the animal phase and it is deemed to be safe, it then moves on to human clinical trials. So an amazing statistic is that 92 out of 100 drugs that are deemed safe after going through animal testing fail in human clinical trials. So that means we have a 92% fail rate. So if you just think about that for a second, that basically means that only 8% of the time when drugs are going through animal trials does it show that it to be effective for humans, just in that first human phase. So immediately you should think, this is clearly not working. Just so you have an idea of some of the things that are happening in these labs to these types of animals is they're having chemicals and toxins injected into their bloodstream, as we said, to a certain degree to find out how much it takes to kill them. Tests where they basically will spray chemical, like they will, through devices, hold the bunny rabbit's eyes open and will spray horrible chemicals into their eyes to find out what that effect is on that specific chemical. But they have a metal device that is basically drilled into cats. There's lots of pictures if you look for them, cats and also monkeys' brains, which clearly that's just like horribly painful, and these like sit in their heads forever. Lots of experiments with cats where they purposely blind them. If you go back to the beginning, 80% of this animal testing is being done for non-medical reasons, meaning there's no federal mandate to do it. So this is something that, like, if you guys, through whatever way you can, through friends, family, through social media, the more you educate people, the more that we get people to basically not support products that are being tested on animals, it will eventually stop. And let's pretend that we get it from 80% to 70% in 5 or 10 years. That could possibly mean the lives of 6 million animals.